Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. Author Sheila M. Miller has written a new book titled, Now What Do I Do? And we're going to talk all about it right here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Sheila is joining me. Sheila, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Sheila, can you tell me all about what you've written and Now What Do I Do?
So this book, it's actually one of my first children's books that I've written. And Now What Do I Do is really a tale about a little boy who's faced with a moral dilemma. And in that, he has the responsibility of being honest and telling the truth and understanding the responsibility of making that decision. So it's really a book that really teaches kids about critical thinking, making decisions when they're faced in situations. And it's also a book that, as the little boy progresses through the story, he discovers that he has a friend that helps him to navigate what he should do. And it turns out and works out for him.
So it sounds like this is a book then best for younger children.
It is. It's for children, I would say school-age children, but it could be, because it's a very intuitive story with lots of pictures, it could be for the independent or the dependent reader. So for the kids that are not yet reading on their own, it's an opportunity for them to look at the pictures and kind of create their own story as they're listening to it being read to them. But for the bigger kids who are more of a independent reader, then it's a cute little story for them that not only engages them with the moral situation that they could be in, but also it entertains them as well. So it's a cute little things in there that's pretty funny for the kids as well.
So what was your inspiration here, Sheila? What gave you the idea to write this?
So the idea came from a couple of things. One, first of all, it was an act of obedience. The Lord had been telling me to write for years, and I finally got up the courage to do it. And so I did. And as I was starting to write the book, my inspiration became one that really the book is centered on a particular family, which happened to be a part of my family. It's based on my godson, who happened to be my great nephew. And I saw a picture of a family portrait. They generally do every year. And they let me have a sneak peek before they sent it out to everyone. And when I looked at that picture, this whole story came out of it. It just came from an inspiration of just seeing that family portrait. It came from an inspiration of being obedient myself and just having the courage to do it. And so it just kind of compelled the story about courage and being honest and telling the truth from a kid's perspective. But that was what inspired me to write this book and to write about that story.
Is this your first time doing something like this, or do you have experience in it?
This is my first time. It is my first time. I feel like the process was very intimidating initially, but as I was going through the process, I had some moments where I'm like, okay, I am totally out of my comfort zone, but I kept doing it because I really got into it. And as a result, I'm actually have finished the second manuscript for another children's book that's actually going to start a series. So first book, but it has really excited me. And so now I'm all excited about doing this.
So once you started this, was this a long process overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
The writing, well, I would say, I don't know, based on most authors, they may say, oh, it only took me however long to write a book. So for me, my experience was, it took me about 4 months to actually write the manuscript. And then the publishing part of the whole process, that took longer to me. It took over a year and a half, actually, from the submission of the manuscript all the way to seeing the finished copy in my hand. So I don't know if that's short or long for some, but it was a long process for me.
What a wonderful message in this book. Again, it's titled Now What Do I Do? It's written by Sheila M. Miller, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available basically everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Sheila, thank you again for coming on the show. It was really nice talking with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Virgil Owen. Virgil, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be able to be a part of this.
I'm excited to be talking with you, and I'm excited to talk about your new book, The Relationship Factor. Virgil, can you tell me all about this?
So basically, the relationship factor it talks about how from the very beginning of mankind, God wanted to have a relationship with man. And I know that Adam, through the fall, I know that he got a bad rap, but I will say this. You don't really find it in Scripture any other place where God actually walked in the cool of the evening to visit with someone. And so, because of everything that had transpired through the fall, we find that Jesus Christ came, and because of the death and the resurrection, that we now have the ability to have the same relationship that Adam did with God. And so basically the book is about how we can have that relationship once again.
Virgil, what kind of readers do you think this would connect with the most? Would you say believers primarily?
I do. I think that it would resonate with the believers, and I pray that it's a huge blessing to them.
So how did this all come about? What was your inspiration to start on this?
So just a little over 20 years ago, my daughter, we were in church, and we were living for God. Everything seemed to be going great. And then my daughter had to have dental surgery done. And so when we took her up to the hospital, they didn't ventilate her properly. And so her brain went without oxygen for the first 20 minutes of the surgery. And so she ended up passing away. When that happened, my faith just exploded. And from that, I ended up 20 years later, I ended up coming back to God. And from that experience, I thought, other people need to understand that how deep a relationship with God needs to be. Even when we face death of a loved one, that our relationship with God needs to be strong enough that even that doesn't shake it. So that's really where the story and the book came from.
So is this your first published work then?
Yes, sir, it is. I do have one that I've just finished, the second one in that series. I don't know if I can tell you the name of it yet, but it is the second one in the series.
So once you got started on the relationship factor, was this a long process overall, the writing, publishing, the whole thing?
So, it wasn't bad. First time published author, I didn't know what to expect. But I will say that overall, it was a very good experience. Time-wise, to actually write the book, it probably took, I'd say altogether about a year. I had started on it, and then I kind of pushed it to the side and, began to do, other things. And I was actually in the car headed to work and was on the phone with my oldest son, Josh. And I told him, I said, I really need to get back on that book. And he gave me some advice that I never will forget. He said, Dad, you really ought to set you a goal. Like you're going to write so many words a day. And he said, Dad, even if it's just 100 words, he said that 100 words will still get you closer. And if you continue to write even just 100 words a day, he said, eventually you'll have the book wrote. And I said, I get it. Yeah, the same thing is how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And so from that point, I started writing. And, honestly, most of the time I didn't just write 100 words. Sometimes I wrote 500, sometimes, up to 2,000. But I just kept plugging on right along until eventually, I got the thing completed.
Well, this sounds like a really wonderful book. Again, it's titled The Relationship Factor. It's written by Virgil Owen, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Virgil, thanks again for coming on the show. It was really great to talk with you tonight.
Thank you for having me. Again, it was a blast, and it's been an exciting adventure, so thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, author Lor E. Lynn. Lor E, welcome. Thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
You have a new audiobook out. It's titled Love Stings, a Home Office Lord's novel. So, Lor E, can you tell me about this one?
This is a continuation of the ones before. It's another mission that was part of the first one. And then there's a girl that gets kidnapped, and then these guys are going in all different directions to try to solve these cases of people who are trying to undermine the government and to get back and protect the innocents.
And Lor E, can you remind me, what sorts of readers would this be best for?
Anything from, I've got high school, middle school kids that are reading these and using them as subjects for book reports and things like that. I've got guys that have read them that really like it because of the action and the mystery part of it. And then there's just a little bit of romance in them. And they're historical fiction, so they're based around real times, but fictional people. So far, I've gotten pretty good reports from everybody that's been reading them, wanting to know when the next one's coming out.
Well, that's wonderful. Do you have plans for that?
Yes, I do. I'm in the process of editing the next book and writing the one after that. So the editing stage is always such a challenge because writers tend to get defensive when someone says that maybe this should be this way instead. But I have a really good editor who does an excellent job catching me on my timeline and things like that.
So you're really creative. How do you keep these ideas going and keep that inspiration flowing?
Well, part of it is I've always been interested in these same type of books. But the other thing is that I've got some writing books and have some writing classes that help you to keep a character profile of all of your people so that you don't mix them up. Because, I've seen that in other books, and it does get aggravating to a reader oh, wait a minute, they've got the wrong person in this place, and they've got the wrong person over there. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And keeping character profiles, and so I add on, anytime there's a new book, I add on the next household full of staff people or other characters that appear in the book so that they don't get mixed up and the names don't get reused, and so that crossover doesn't happen. And then sharing creative ideas with other authors, with the people my nieces that are so eager for me to keep writing. So we get into idea sessions, which can be a lot of fun.
Lor E, you have some books out there now. Do you find that process overall getting shorter, the writing and publishing?
Yes, because you get to be an old hat. Although I made the mistake of trying to write 3 different novels that happened in the same timeline. So it became challenging where I couldn't be sending this one a message and then saying, oh, that one's got a different message from another person, and they don't mesh, or they're not in the same place that I said they were in book 2. So that was the challenging part for books, 3, 4, and 5, was because they were happening at the same time.
And are you the kind of writer that uses an outline of sorts, or are you just kind of writing off the cuff?
No, I use an outline, and I'll update it too as I go on. If I don't like the way the story's going, or I might get an idea of a tangent to go off on, so that I'll update the outline. You got to be a little bit more flexible in order to be able to keep that creative writing going and keep your readers involved. And I will not kill off my main characters. I'm reading someone else's book right now. In the very first chapter, they killed off the main character. And I'm like, why would you do that? I'll kill off the bad people, not the good people.
And so as you keep writing, working with your publisher, do you find that publishing process getting easier? There's so much involved. It can be so challenging. So is that getting easier for you?
I think so. I would much rather do it this way than to do the self-publishing and having to worry myself about copywriting and IBSN numbers and all that stuff. When ISBN numbers, they take care of everything. And then they help with the covers, they help with marketing, the sales report. I just think, to me at least, it's been so much easier than trying to do self-publishing. I've talked to a lot of people that do the hybrid publishing like Pages Considered, or to do the traditional type where they go through 100 no's before they might get a yes, to all the people that are self-publishing, and there's so many errors when the books go out, they're hard to read. I really appreciate the publisher and having that publisher to help me and back me up.
Again, this book is titled Love Stings, a Home Office Lord's novel. It's written by Lor E. Lynn, published by the Audiobook Network. So Find it at places like Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Lori, it's been wonderful talking with you again here. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Corey, for having me.
The audiobook edition of the new book by Laura Mountainspring titled Mountainpazell, The Search for the Light Scroll. Well, it just came out, and Laura is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about it. Laura, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Laura, what can readers and audiobook listeners expect whenever they get into Mountainpazell?
You're going on a journey. It's not typical, it's magical, and it's a journey.
What sorts of readers did you have in mind for it?
Young adult to older. It has some mature themes.
Laura, what kind of genre would you say that this falls into?
Definitely a fantasy fiction, though I've seen it labeled science fiction. I'm like, well, okay, cool. There's no science fiction in it, but yeah.
So how'd this all come about, Laura? Where'd you get the idea or the inspiration for it?
Well, I'm a painter, and I've been songwriting since I was a teen. And so I have this, I call creative process. And I was working in my garden when I could still go outside. And I just had this idea. I saw the beginning and I saw the end. And I had to fill it in between. And it took about 6 years and 700 pages.
So is this your first time doing something like this, or do you have some experience in it?
Back in high school, I would write a lot of short stories, but mostly it was poetry and songwriting, and the bug hit me. I had to write this, and there it was.
So once you sat down, you got started on this, clear up through the publishing process and everything. Was this a long journey for you overall?
I started in around 2015, and I'm almost done the second book. I'm mostly done the outline of the third book, and I have finished the first book.
So once you had your manuscript ready, you started working with your publisher. What did you find the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
I don't really recollect the challenge of it, the publishing process. It was going in knowing, you have to stand your ground with some of the editors and say, no, that stays. But the biggest challenge was getting it all written in the first place.
So once that day came, the first copy came in, it was finally a real thing. You're holding Mountainpazell in your hands for the first time, Laura. What was that moment like for you?
It's a very special feeling. I can go back and remember fantasizing in my youth, being interviewed for the books I've written, and fantasizing having it done. And holding it in my hand was like it wasn't a fantasy anymore. It had become reality, and it still kind of blows me away. It's like, I did it. Oh my God, I wrote a book.
So now that you are published, your work's out there for the world, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I think it's a positive message and a message that I needed to share.
So we have a lot of authors listening to us right now, and they're just starting out as well. Laura, do you have some advice that maybe you could toss out there for them? I
do, actually. I'm very fortunate to have 2 daughters who are teachers and a son-in-law who's a teacher. And my father was a teacher. 2 of them teach English. And what you have to be willing to do is find what they call betas. My kids were very good about it. They never told me what to write, but they said, Mom, you can't say it that way, or it needs a little more here and there. And because I didn't start with 700 pages, and they're like, we need more information. Give us more, give us more, give us more. And we would do what we call readings, and we would sit down and read the chapter at a time, and they would go, you can't do that, or that doesn't make sense, or give me more information. Find someone, preferably not your spouse or significant other, who you trust to give you good information on where you need to improve your work.
So we're talking about the audiobook edition, of course. So was it a difficult process for you to find just the right voice you were looking for?
No, actually, they sent me some samples, and when I heard, and can I say her name? When I heard Vanjie doing the voice of McGregor, I knew who my reader was. And I run it by my betas, and they go, Vanjie, that's the one. So yes, it was quite simple because they sent us the right person.
Again, this book is titled Mountainpazell, The Search for the Light Scroll. It's written by Laura Mountainspring and published by the Audiobook Network, so find it at places that you usually get your audiobooks at, like Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really nice chatting with you tonight.
Thank you.
Author Steve Wilson has written a charming tale that follows a young boy as he takes his first ever ride on a yellow school bus. The book is titled The Big Yellow Bus, and that's what we're going to be talking about right now. Steve is here with me at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Steve, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Steve, can you tell me what you've written about in The Big Yellow Bus?
I'm a school bus driver myself. I've been driving for over 11 years. And the first day on the bus can be a little scary for the little ones. They can be intimidated by having to get on that huge vehicle. So I focused on the little boy's first ride on the school bus and what he was thinking in his mind is like, what's he going to encounter on that bus? Is it like a cave inside with a bunch of mean boys wanting to pick on him when he goes in there? So that's basically where I built it on.
So would you say your target audience for this was young readers at elementary school age?
Yeah, either kindergarten, I would say probably age 4 up maybe 5, up to like second grade, maybe third grade.
So how'd you get the idea to write this? What was your inspiration for it?
My wife always told me that I could turn a phrase. One of my best friends passed away about 5 years ago. I did his eulogy, and after I delivered the eulogy, everybody was coming up to me telling me how much they loved it and they appreciated it. I've always kind of had the idea in the back of my head of writing a children's book, and I just got the idea of focusing on the school bus.
So this is your first book then?
Yes.
So once you got started on it, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yeah, from the time I wrote it and submitted it to publishing to actually the book actually being released, it took a real long time. But now it's out. For the writing process itself, it just kind of flowed. I wrote the book over a couple of days. I mean, it is a children's book, so it's not that long. But the writing just kind of came naturally. And everybody recited what I wrote to a lot of people, and everybody seemed to really like it. So I submitted it to Covenant Publishing, and they accepted it.
So once you started working with Covenant Books, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing process for you?
Probably just say that the wait. It really wasn't bad, and the representative that worked with me through the whole process was and is fantastic. Always keeps me aware of what's going on and where we are and progress and stuff. And they also have an author's portal that they use, and you can go on and check things on that as well. It's a good experience.
So once it was finally a real thing, that first copy came in, you're holding the big yellow bus in your hands for the first time, Steve. What was that moment like for you?
When I first got a copy of the book, I was extremely pleased. I think the cover looks fantastic. And you pick the illustrations yourself. They provide the illustrator, and they give you certain options. First, an option of the style of the characters, and then options on which characters you want to use and how you use them. And so the book itself on the front cover, I had them put kind of menacing eyes on the front of the bus just to make it a little different because that's what he's worried about. He's intimidated by this big bus, and he doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah, the illustrations are so important in a book like this, so it sounds like that process went pretty smoothly for you.
Yes, it did. I was very pleased with that, too. They did a good job matching them up to the different parts of the book.
So now it's out there, you're a published author. Steve, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Well, you're probably being a published author is pretty good. It's something I always thought about. I think the most rewarding thing is I have an opportunity to help some people. Part of the proceeds of the book are going to go to the local school system, the Charahoe School System's lunch program, to pay for underprivileged kids to give them a healthy meal for breakfast and lunch.
I think this is a great book for young readers. Again, it's titled The Big Yellow Bus. It's written by Steve Wilson and published by Covenant Books. So head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you can pick this up. Well, Steve, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about the Big Yellow Bus. It was really nice talking with you.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Thank you very much for having me.
Sitting down with me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Lin C. Lynn, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Nice to be here.
It's great to be talking with you, and I'm excited to be talking about your new book, Emmy Finds a Forever Home. Lynn, can you tell me what you've written here?
Well, it's a story about my adopting Emmy, who had been in a shelter and then shifted from home to home. So I used to work at a hospice, and I was a bereavement counselor, and I saw Emmy's picture on the break room board, and I guess the lady that had her couldn't keep her anymore. So I had always wanted a little dog, even though I had an awesome cat. I thought, well, let's give it a try. So I went and picked up Emmy, and it worked out for a while, and then all of a sudden she got very aggressive toward my cat, Chloe. Chloe was the alpha pet, and she was a wonderful cat. She was very gentle and not aggressive at all. And I thought, what am I doing to her? It's not fair to her. So I told my coworker that I needed to bring Emmy back, that it just wasn't working. And a few days later, I went into work, and she wasn't there. So I called her. She didn't respond to any of my text messages or anything. And she just assumed that I would put Emmy back in a shelter. And my coworker had lost her sister, and I know that she was grieving and going through a hard time. So anyway, I just couldn't put Emmy in a shelter. So I decided somehow we're going to work this out. So it's Emmy's feelings and perspective on life. It starts out with her in a shelter and being adopted for the first time and experiencing the loss of her first owner who had congestive heart failure. And just, how scared she was and afraid that she'd end up in another shelter. And so that's kind of what the story is about and how we bonded. She and I really bonded very well. She followed me everywhere. And she really became a very sweet little dog to have. And unfortunately, I had to put her down about a month ago, and it was very hard. Yeah, it was very hard.
Lynn, what kinds of readers did you have in mind for this?
Well, it's basically for devoted pet owners. It's not really a children's book. In some ways it is, but it really isn't. It's more for adults that have pets, that have experienced having to put that pet to sleep or, been comforted by an animal and when they're sick. So it's basically for people that really understand what it's like to own a pet and take care of a pet and, spend money on them when it's needed and the comfort that they give to us. It's more geared towards that than children, although a lot of there's no, swearing in it. It's not, it's a PG-rated book, and so a teenager could read it and probably understand it quite a bit. In fact, one of my great-granddaughters fosters dogs before they go into therapy training. So, she kind of understands the importance of that. So at the age of 14, I think a teenager would enjoy the book as well.
So, Lynn, do you see yourself writing more, maybe a follow-up to this or something else?
Yeah, I have been writing. I started a sequel to Emmy, and then I've also been working on my own life. I've been writing about my own life. So in between the two, that's kind of what I've been doing. I really wish I would have done this earlier in my life. But, things get in the way, life gets in the way, and so you just kind of go with what is. But I'm grateful that, I am writing again and really enjoy it. When I went to school, I went to University of Phoenix to get my master's degree and a lot of paper writing, and I really enjoyed that. It was the best part of going to school was writing papers and doing research and, so...
Well, what a great story in this book. Again, it's titled Emmy Finds a Forever Home. It's written by Lin C and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and even down the street at your local bookshop, and you'll be able to pick this up. Lynn, thanks again for coming on the show. It was really great to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really hope that people enjoy the book.
I'm looking at a book that explores how the author's life has been impacted by his unwavering faith. It's written by Luke Sanders. It's titled The Plans I Have for You, an autobiographical memoir. Luke is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to be talking all about it. Luke, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Luke, can you tell me all about what you've written in The Plans I Have for You?
Yeah, well, it is it's labeled the autobiographical memoir. It's about all of my life, from my young upbringing as a kid to me playing baseball, to going in the military, to injury in the military, to my recovery from that, and to going on to where I am in life now. And basically, the whole point of the story is just to show my faith and to show that whether you're having the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, God has a plan and direction for your life.
So what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
Well, I think most will go with people that have really been through something in life and they're trying to push through and they're trying to keep going. I'm meaning this book to be inspirational for people that have had something in their life, to realize that if you just keep going through whatever you're dealing with, that there's going to be good things to come, and you just got to keep pushing and keep going forward.
So what was the inspiration behind this, Luke? What made you decide to write this book?
Well, when I was in the military, recovering from my accident, from my injury, my lieutenant colonel, battalion commander, that's pretty high up in the Army, but he came to the hospital to see me. He was amazed with that I had survived from what had happened to me. And he was like, Luke, you should write a book about your story. And having a lieutenant colonel from the Army tell me that I should do that, I started to write the book for fun, and then I just started to love the process of writing. And I decided to finish the whole story. And my whole goal with writing is to continue to write books. And that's why I'm getting my master's in history right now. But really, to answer your question, it was a lieutenant colonel, a battalion commander from the Army, that inspired me to write this book.
So this is your first book then?
Yeah, it's my first book, but I'm planning to write more. I'm planning to write historical fictions, and that's why I'm getting my master's in history right now.
So once you started writing this, was this a long process overall for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
I put first words to paper or to computer in May of 2022, and then I finished the first draft of the book in May of 2024, so it took about 2 years to get my first manuscript done, and then I edited it a bit and on my own, signed my book deal with Covenant Books in November, and then had a change in life that's in the book that I had to change the book around just a little bit, and then got my editing done, and then so it was about, not including the editing, it was about 2 years to write the book, and then there was about 2.5 years to get it from first idea on paper to getting it published.
Yeah, there's the writing of the book, and then there's the publishing of the book. Luke, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
The actual editing. For me, actual writing is really enjoyable. I love to write. I love to write almost as much, if not more, than I love to read. So I'm a big reader, too. But the actual editing, making sure everything was, no grammar faults or nothing wrong in the reading of the book, that was the hardest part. But then the second hardest part was, there's a lot of emotional stuff that happened to me in the book as readers will find. It was hard to get those out there, but then actually it was really getting so much about my life out there was therapeutic, about the struggles I've been through in my life. It was really good to just get it out there, and it was hard at part, but it was also really enjoyable and good for my mental health to get my story out there.
Yeah, this book is out there for the whole world. What's the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Well, it truly is not. It's not about the money I make from this book. What it really is about is the inspiration that it can create to other people.
What a great message in this book. Again, it's titled The Plans I Have for You. It's written by Luke Sanders and published by Covenant Books. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also down the street at your local bookshop. Luke, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me about your story and about this book. It's been really great talking with you.
Thank you. You too, sir.
I'm looking at the new book by Rebecca Mountain-Pazell. It's titled Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Pasta. And we're going to be talking all about it right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Rebecca, is right here with me. Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to be talking with you, and I'm excited to learn about Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Pasta. So, Rebecca, can you tell me all about the book?
Yes, it's actually a sequel to my first book, Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Sushi. I really did have a delightful and very charming pig named Ziggy. I had her for 9 years, and this book is really a continuation of the series, and I'm currently writing the third and final book, which I will share with you and your listeners, is going to be called Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Nachos, but I'm still writing that one.
Rebecca, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
When I was growing up, I was the kind of child who always loved it whenever children's books would take, should we say, kind of a swerve towards the kitchen. I really, really loved Beverly Cleary. In her book, Ramona Quimby, age 8, there was a whole chapter where Ramona was, as a punishment, was forced to cook dinner, and I just loved it. I wanted to cook everything Ramona was cooking. On the show Zoom, if you remember that show Zoom on PBS for children, if you remember that, maybe it was before your time, but it was a children's variety show on public broadcasting, and it would stop occasionally and do a cooking segment, and that was always my favorite portion of the show, was the cooking segment. So, and I could go on and on. Really, all my favorite episodes of family sitcoms are always the ones where they would have maybe a food-themed episode and so on. So, really, my book is just for any children, really, about between the ages of 9 to 12, who just really, maybe their parents aren't letting them go do a whole lot of experimenting in the kitchen just yet, but they're almost there, and they really can't wait to start cooking.
So once you got started writing this, was this a long journey over all the writing and publishing and everything?
Oh, goodness. It's funny you should ask that, because this is so funny. The first book was a relatively short book, honestly, more of a bedtime story length, and really more of like a novella or just more like a long short story. I wrote that in one afternoon because I was very sick. It turns out I had shingles and didn't know it, and I was very sick. I took an afternoon off from work, and I just wrote it all. Then the second time, I thought, okay, this time I want a book with chapters. And this one, Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Pasta, does, in fact, have 9 chapters. I wrote this one when I had COVID, so I was sick and had nothing else to do. So I'm just waiting for a really major illness to come along before I start writing the third and final book. I don't know. Fingers crossed. I might get malaria, something really serious. Something to flatline me for a little bit where I'll, just have the spare time. But that's basically it, yeah. And ask any writer, and I'm sure that person will tell you it's all about just finding that quiet space, just, turn down all the noise and all the mess and really, and even if you're tentative at first, just write something, anything at all, even if it's garbage, even if it's driveled. The first draft usually is pretty embarrassing. The first drafts are usually kind of painful, really very primitive, but just write something, anything. And as far as anything else goes, I do have one funny ritual. I always wash my hands before I start writing. I feel like it has to be clean, and I want it pristine in my I feel like my workspace has to be pristine. I keep my keyboard scrupulously clean. So, yeah, I always wash my hands before I start writing.
So once you had your manuscript ready, you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith. What do you find to be the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
Well, the first time I actually used a different publisher, I used Outskirts Press. Christian Faith, for various reasons, I really wanted to focus more really on. And again, I want to say up front, my books are very wholesome. There is because people are talking a lot lately about subversive discourse. There's nothing like that in my children's books. They're all super wholesome. That's why I wanted to work with someone with an emphasis on Christian literature for children. And so, yeah, I just contacted them online, and they called me back, and we just set something up, and we just took it from there. It was really very straightforward.
Sounds like children and families are really going to love this book. Again, it's titled Ziggy, the Pig Who Loved Pasta. It's written by Rebecca Mountain-Pazell and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So go on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to find this. Well, Rebecca, it was great talking with you tonight. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You do the same, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Right now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm joined by author Dave Byler. Dave, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited. This is my first book.
Congratulations. The book is called But for a Piece of Bread, What's Lacking with Network Marketing and Most Churches. So Dave, can you tell me what you've written about here?
Yes. I briefly tell people that I believe that my book is a wake-up call after God led to wake me up with a near-death experience several years ago. So that's kind of where this all started.
Dave, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the best?
I would say it's mostly geared toward people who say that's not what it means when you read from the Bible. That's not what God meant, is what a lot of people are saying in today's society and today's world, and that's why we have all the problems in the world. People are not facing reality. Those are the kind of people that I want to reach, is the people that are not facing reality.
Dave, I've noticed there are dollar signs in the title. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. There's a scripture in Proverbs in the 28th chapter, the first verse, that talks about what people will do for money. And the dollar sign is meant to lead to that subject, what people and what churches will do for money, because I believe that's the underlying theme of probably not 100%, but very close to it, of churches in today's world and also in network marketing businesses. The bottom line is a dollar sign, what people will do for money, but for a piece of bread.
So how'd this come about? What inspired you to write it?
I have had 3 different times in my lifetime where I was near death, and several times my family was told that I would not survive. And during the last one, I became very, very discouraged, and when I could get no help. I believe that we need doctors, and I believe that they are excellent. They're trained to cover up problems, that cover them up, not to fix them. And I believe that the only answer to life's problems is found in God's Word, the Bible. And so that's what led me to, during this downtime, for 2 years, I was totally disabled, didn't walk for 2 years. And during this time, I sat with a Bible that I discovered that had a commentary with every verse was explained. And I was finally able to understand what I was reading. And so I believe that I was led by the Holy Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, to write this book.
So what does your writing background look like? Is this the first time you've done something like this?
Yes, it is. It's the first book that I've written. Now, I'm an old man, and during my high school years, I received excellent grades in my journalism classes and thought that I would be a writer. But it didn't work out that way for many, many years, and it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a work of my own. And so this is how this came about, by the leading of the Holy Spirit to allow me to do that.
So once you started writing it, clear up through the publishing process and everything, was this a long journey overall?
Yes, it was. It took me approximately 2 years from the time that I started writing. I absolutely would sit sometimes for hours and just kind of look at the wall, not be able to write until I was inspired. And when I received inspiration from God, then I would begin to write what came to mind, what He brought to my mind. Then I began to write, and I did hours and hours of research backing what I said from Scripture, from the Bible. Everything is to be Bible-based that I write. In other words, the truth. If it's not true, don't write it. That's how I feel about it.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, Dave, what was the most challenging part of that publishing process for you?
The toughest thing was they didn't really push me. It was getting the inspiration to continue. That was tough for me. That was a real experience, learning experience, because a lot of times I wrote things and then just did away with them because they didn't fit the narrative.
This book is titled, But for a Piece of Bread, What's Lacking with Network Marketing and Most Churches. It's written by Dave Byler and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, and also right down the street at your local bookshop. Dave, thank you again for talking with me tonight and telling me all about your work. It was really great chatting with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
A monster of a problem. That's the new book written by Janine Santé and Christina Evans, and it's a whimsical and clever tale that teaches the value of curiosity and critical thinking. One of the co-authors, Janine, is here with me, and we're going to talk all about the book. Janine, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you.
Janine, can you tell me all about A Monster of a Problem and what readers are going to find here?
I wrote it. It feels like it's been a very long time now, so I have some memory loss. This book is about uncertainty and being misunderstood and the strength of critical thinking, like you said. It kind of follows me in my cognitive improvement, overcoming a brain injury.
Janine, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
People who like creativity, colorful art.
So what was the inspiration behind this? What made you decide to write it?
Graffiti, believe it or not. I had someone in my neighborhood painted large three-toed footprints behind our unit. And my daughter and I would walk along, and we made up a story about these footprints, and that was the whole inspiration.
So once you got started on this, was this a long journey overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yes. Book 1, written July 4th, 2014. I remember that because it's so very remarkable. Why Sparks Won't Fly. I wrote that, had an injury with my daughter that was life-changing, and was grateful and gifted and blessed, both of us, to come together to rehab my brain to write a second book in the same world.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, what did you find the most challenging part about the publishing process for you?
I worked in advertising for pharmaceuticals for many years, so the speed with which things are done for God's glory is very, very disappointing for somebody in my. The last thing I wrote for was Dupixent. It's a little different.
So now it's out there, you're a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
There are so many things. I like to talk with other people who have their own ideas for books, and they never thought they could make that leap. And I'm just like, oh, come on. If I can, everybody can. For people who really don't think they have the strength intellectually, give it a try. We got to lose.
So I could only imagine what you were thinking and what you were feeling whenever the first copy came in and A Monster of a Problem was finally in your hands. It was a real thing, Janine. What was that moment like for you?
I believe that I got the printed copies to Proof to Approve on Christmas Eve last year. So that was rather special. So I made a fuss about that.
So you said you have plans to write and publish more after this?
Yes, I have unlimited. It's a little hard to manage, but I have wonderful ideas and really pleasant projects. I have a board game that I'm working on. I'm trying to find communities to test it.
So as far as the cover, the artwork, was that an easy thing to put together?
Yes, because it's part of the game. That little piece, that little snippet of footprints is a very small piece of the board game.
So we have a lot of listeners who are authors just starting out. Do you have maybe some advice that you could offer them?
Definitely try and have people read it and accept that it's going to hurt and move past that, because everyone has a tale to tell for sure. It may not be the written word, it may be music, it may be dance, but please express yourself. That's a healthier way to go these days.
That's some great advice. This book is titled A Monster of a Problem. It's written by Janine Santé and Christina Evans. It's published by Christian Faith Publishing and available at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Janine, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. It was really great talking with you.
Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.